5th Secretary of Defense, Ash Carter.
Ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Please don't clap for me. I'm really here to clap for you. And that's the theme of what I want to say to you. So good morning. Thanks for being here. It was 2 weeks ago when I spoke of President Obama and his leadership and accomplishments as our commander-in-chief. And then last week, General Dunford and the leadership honored me with farewells. But today, I want to say farewell to you and to honor the department I've served and loved for 35 years, and you that I have served alongside. And as many of you know, I like to walk the halls of this place. And also the roadsides, to the dismay of people at installations around the country and around the world. I walk because I like to get a little exercise. I walk to get out of the office. I walk to see what's going on in the department. But most of all, I walk to see how you're doing and to say hello and let me see you and you see me and give you some sense of how important what you do is and how much I appreciate it. And over the course of 3.5 decades of those walks, 3.5 decades, I've seen how this department has changed, how it's gotten better and better in so many ways. I've seen how our missions have transformed from the single-minded, ultimately successful great power competition of the Cold War, which is where I began, to its relative easing in the decade or so thereafter, to the more than 10 years of skillful but all-absorbing counterinsurgency campaigns that followed, to today's return to full-spectrum readiness and capabilities. And I've seen how our technology has evolved. When I started my career in defense, when I started my career in physics for that matter, most technology of consequence originated in America. And much of that was sponsored by the government, especially the Department of Defense. Now, we're still major sponsors today, but much more technology is commercial. Technology base is global. And other countries have been trying to catch up with the breakthroughs that for the last several decades made our military more advanced than any other. So we've had to make sure that we stay ahead and stay the best. And I've also seen how as the Cold Warriors gave way to those who came after, and then the 9/11 generation was replaced by today's force. Our people have changed as well. For starters, these halls are filled with a lot less cigarette smoke than was the case when I started. But more than that, the whole force is higher quality, vastly more experienced, and draws high talent more widely from all of America than was the case back then. And we're better and we're stronger because of it. And it's our people, after all, and above all, which makes ours the finest fighting force the world has ever known. Now, what hasn't changed about this place in all my time here, and I don't think it'll ever change, is why we're all here, what brought us here. Each and every one of you, each and every one of the totality of the force, nationwide, worldwide, is doing the noblest thing that a person can do with their life, and that's defend this magnificent country and make a better world for our children. We get to do that. We have to do that. But it's a source of great pride and inspiration, and I think is the reason we're all here. And I've seen that commitment every day when I walk these halls, looking at all of the extraordinary people here, uniformed and civilian, political and career, new PMFs, and those who served for decades like me, work together with determination to, first of all, confront the immediate challenges we face right now around the world, immediate, distinct, evolving, but upon us right now. So I've seen it in those Americans who stand with our allies in countering the prospect of Russian aggression and coercion in Europe, from soldiers in Grafenwehr, sailors and Marines on the USS San Antonio and Estonia, airmen at Aviano, civilians at NATO headquarters in Brussels. I've seen that dedication in all those Americans managing historic change in the Asia-Pacific and standing strong there, too, on the flight deck of the USS Teddy Roosevelt afloat in the South China Sea, on our bases in Japan and the Republic of Korea and elsewhere, flying, sailing, and operating wherever international law allows, and strengthening our deterrent and defense forces in the face of North Korea's continued nuclear and missile provocations. And I've seen it in those Americans serving on bases and aboard ships around the Middle East, whether in Kuwait, Bahrain, or other locations, where they're deterring aggression, countering Iran's malign influence in the Gulf, and helping defend our friends and our allies. And I've seen it in the eyes of those warriors accelerating the certain and lasting defeat of ISIL, like those in Baghdad who received the first Operation Inherent Resolve campaign medals last April, who are enabling capable local forces to destroy ISIL and its parent tumor in Iraq and Syria, and everywhere else it metastasizes, in Afghanistan, Libya, and around the world, and also are helping to protect our homeland and our people, which, after all, is in the end what it's all about. And I've seen that dedication here at home, at the Pentagon, and elsewhere, in the things that people here do, briefs by strategists, planners, programmers, intelligence analysts, and more, who are helping ensure that we're prepared for what it will be an uncertain future, as well as a busy present, for challenges we may not even anticipate today. In the meticulous work of those doing the best they can to make sure we have the resources we need, even amid shameful budget uncertainty. To invest in the right training, the right equipment, the right force size, the right compensation, so that our people can always accomplish the mission and stay the best. And in the care of those at our hospitals, outpatient support clinics, and wounded warrior facilities. Those standing by the survivors of sexual assault and against this offense, against honor and trust. And those standing with the families of the fallen, who do all they can to take care of them and all our people. And I've sensed it in all those who are making sure we always live the values that we defend and uphold the laws we're sworn to protect. I've read that dedication by all of you on every trip book and read ahead I've received from the remarkable teams here, every press release from our public affairs department explaining your work to the people we work for. And I've heard it in the proposals, the pitches, as they say, of all of those thinking outside of our Pentagon's five-sided box on our behalf. At DARPA and our dozens of DoD labs and research centers across the country, at our DIUX outposts, in the Defense Digital Service, on the Defense Innovation Board and other boards, and more, to ensure we always stay ahead of our competitors and stay on the cutting edge. And of course, I've also felt that commitment in all those across the department and each of the services who are dedicated to building the force of the future for generations to come, so that we continue to attract and retain and develop the most talented people America has to offer, military and civilian, for what is, after all, an all-volunteer force. And I hear that same dedication in the voices of all those who will make up and who will lead that force of the future. And those cadets and midshipmen I visited at the academies, West Point, Annapolis, Colorado Springs, and ROTC programs across the country, and a phone call I had with the first women soldiers to graduate from Ranger School, and conversations at boot camp at Great Lakes and in the basic school at Quantico, and the new recruits I administered the oath of enlistment to. They may be young, but they speak for all of us who've been drawn to this department and dedicated our lives to its mission. Earlier this year, when I was visiting basic training, I went into the bunking area of some brand new recruits. Each stood rigidly in front of their bunk at attention. It wasn't obvious that they really knew who I was or what the Secretary of Defense was, but they looked terrified just the same. And as always, I went up to one of them and I said, "Why'd you join us?" And he's about 18 years old, a little stubble of a mustache and kind of alarmed eyes. But without hesitation, he said, "My parents always told me America gave us much and I should give back," just like that. And then he started to cry right there in front of 50 bunkmates. And I'm sure he got a lot of ribbing for that. But that young person is an example. That's the kind of kid we get. And I'm sure that reason, that calling that spoke to him is what speaks to you. Certainly does to me. It's what brought me to this place 35 years ago and kept bringing me back. It is what brings you here every day and keeps you here through the long days and the late nights when you're far away from home or locked in a skiff, holidays, sometimes weeks on end. And it's what drives the 3 million Americans serving in uniform and as civilians across this country, and around the clock in every time zone on Earth, in every domain, the air, ashore, afloat, even in cyberspace. All of them and all of you are defending not only the United States and its people, you're also defending the values and the principles that define us. Will you provide the security that will enable our children to live a better life? Because you do so, and as you work sometimes late into the night, millions of Americans can go home that night to their families in safety. Because of what you do, our fellow citizens can live their lives and dream their dreams and enjoy the freedoms upon which this country was built and for which so many generations of Americans have fought. And because you do so, I'll walk out of the Pentagon tomorrow, as I have every night of my tenure, confident in the nation's and this department's future, in the brightness of that future. As all of you know, our mission is demanding, it's constantly changing. But I couldn't be prouder of you for what you do every day, what you've done for all of us. And I'm going to continue to be proud, months and the years ahead, as this department continues to live up to the incredibly high expectations Americans have for it and that it's earned. May God bless you. God bless the finest fighting force the world has ever known. God bless our great country. Thank you and farewell.